Once again, welcome to our Essential Soft Skills Leadership class today. Today's class will be hosted by myself, Jamie, and my colleague, Kelsey, with the Plano Public Library. Before we begin, I do need to let you know about some ground rules that we have set up for today's program. You will be muted during this class, and we have your video blocked. You will only see my screen. Right now, you should be looking at a title slide that says Essential Soft Skills Leadership. At the top of your screen, you can find an exit full screen option if you need to get to other things on your computer during today's class. You are, of course, welcome to ask questions during the program or request that I repeat information at any time. You should see an icon at the bottom of your screen that says chat, which you can click to open that chat window. The chat is set to be seen by library staff only. Please note that any inappropriate comments will cause your immediate removal from the class. You may also make use of the Q&A feature if you prefer. Questions that are asked during the class may be covered in the chat box, be held until a break or the end of class, or asked immediately at the time if they are pressing, but I do promise I will try and get to any and all questions that we may have today. On our website, you can find a course handout with additional information, and Kelsey will also share that link in the chat for you as well. Now, please keep in mind a recording of today's class will be available in a few days. So if you would like to watch today and then review that information after getting the recording, that is an option for you. I will try to take it slow during anything that I'm talking about, just in case you're taking notes or trying to access resources along with me. With all that out of the way, let's get down to business. As we get started, I do need to remind you that I am not a business expert. I am a librarian, and the content in today's program is intended to be a more general overview of the topic. Our learning objectives for today's class are as follows. First, we're going to explore the key differences between soft and hard skills. Next, we'll define and illustrate examples of the soft skill of leadership. Then we'll assess your personal proficiency in leadership. And finally, we'll develop and demonstrate leadership at any experience level. Now let's start with some definitions and background information. So, what are soft skills? They are a broad category of work proficiencies that are innate, unique, qualitative, and subjective. This can make them a bit tricky to define and measure. Speaking very broadly, a soft skill is anything done in the working environment that is not considered a hard skill, like typing, performing a specific job task, operating equipment, or things like that. Now, why are soft skills important? They represent your ability to work with people, respond to unexpected circumstances, and to make beneficial decisions for your employer. Additionally, they reflect the unique fabric of our human reality and individual differences. Soft skills are the skills that help you get along with others and work as a cohesive team. So let's look a little more at the differences between hard and soft skills. Hard skills are learned primarily through study and education, and they're demonstrated through tangible examples like certifications, degrees, or portfolios. Examples include things like accounting, the ability to code, or copywriting. Soft skills, on the other hand, are learned primarily through your experience and practice. They are things you develop on the job or during your own personal reflection and study. And they will be demonstrated through the testimony of your references, through testimonials from customers, or through anecdotes that you share with your employer. Examples of soft skills include things like communication, creativity, and your overall work ethic. As you can see from the diagram on your screen, there is some overlap between hard skills and soft skills. Both can be learned and developed with intentional time, practice, and application. Both will also appear in your job reviews and interview opportunities that you may receive. Today, we're focusing specifically on leadership. And there are many ways to define leadership. One definition of leadership is that it is a set of behaviors used to help people align their collective direction, to execute strategic plans, and to continually renew an organization. It's important to remember that leadership is a set of behaviors. So, simply put, leadership encompasses many different soft skills. It includes elements like alignment, execution, and organization. And many components of our specific definition today will focus on how leadership applies within an organization. However, you can also develop your own definition of leadership through your personal experiences. Leadership and management are not the same thing. Do you need to be in a management position to lead? No, not at all. You can lead at any level of an organization. On the other hand, do you need to be a leader if you are in a management position? Ideally, yes. A skilled leader can adapt to the specific situation in which they are acting. And this is especially true if the leader is in a management position or leading from above. The chart on your screen is one example of how different leadership styles might come into play when interacting with the individuals you need to motivate. You can see that all four categories have their purpose. Leadership is a matter of determining the appropriate circumstances for each of those styles. Let's take a look at some examples of each. First, in the blue circle, you have delegating, which offers both low support and low directive. This strategy is useful for working with self reliant achievers or your talented employees who have a desire to grow and take on a lot of responsibility. They don't need a lot of instruction from you to do the work, and they don't need a lot of support to get that work done. Next, in that orange circle, you have supporting. This strategy offers high support but low directive. It's useful for working with your capable but cautious performers or those who know what to do but may lack confidence in their overall abilities. It allows them to practice independence by giving them a few directives, but it still offers that encouragement when they need it. Then in the green circle, you have coaching. This is a strategy that offers both high support and high directive. It's useful for working with both disillusioned learners and new team members. Look for those who have developed or are developing their competence, but have low commitment that may require higher directive. You're providing the step by step instructions when needed, but you're also building the confidence to perform independently. And finally, in the pink circle, we have directing. This strategy offers low support and high directive, and it's useful in high risk or time sensitive situations in which independent decision making is not possible or desired. It can be helpful when working with enthusiastic beginners whose relevant decision making skills may not be fully developed. While they're excited to do the work, they may not have the background or skills necessary to do it on their own yet. I'd like to pause here and ask if we have any questions about how we're defining soft skills or leadership before we move on to our next topic. All right, looks like we are doing good so far. So let's go ahead and move into assessing our leadership style. As I mentioned earlier, skilled leaders are able to operate in a multimodal fashion. They utilize whichever leadership style is the most suitable for that specific situation. That said, most people also have a signature leadership style that is their default. Remember that having high or low levels of supportive and directive behavior is neutral by default. The different situations can and will change the sort of impact each type of behavior will have. So we're going to look at each type of behavior in a little bit more detail. When I say supporting, We're referring to offering structural supports such as the tools, resources, and coaching that an employee might need. We're not talking about emotional support. Leaders with high levels of that supportive behavior might coach their high performers on how to go above and beyond. They might address lower team cohesion with team building activities. They might request more frequent status updates on their high priority projects, or they might tailor their suggestions for professional development to each specific individual. On the other hand, if you are a leader with a low level of supportive behavior, you might expect your direct reports to act and make those decisions independently. You might provide broad objectives for team members and permit freedom in their approach to the work. You might hold team members to a high standard of excellence, or you might set boundaries regarding their availability to reports. So you might have some boundaries and say, I'm really only available to answer questions on Mondays from 3 to 5. That's my scheduled time. Now, when we talk about directing, on the other hand, it's going to refer to offering vision, direction, and focus to your team. Leaders with high levels of directive behavior might assign tasks based on the individual's skills and proficiencies. They might make decisions quickly and decisively. They might prioritize team efficiency, or they might envision a specific outcome and methodology for the work. On the other hand, leaders with low levels of directive behavior might seek the group buy in on most decisions, brainstorm possibilities with team members, prioritize team creativity, or create a broad vision but leave open the specific details for the team to debate. To learn more about leadership styles and to start assessing and developing your own leadership skills, there are many online resources and quizzes that you can take. You also have resources available for free with your Plano Public Library card, including the Skills Matcher tool with the Learning Express library and the Leadership Styles and Models course on LinkedIn Learning. And we'll share those links in the chat for you as well. Assessing your leadership skills takes intentional time and focus. A good place to start is by personal reflection. What are some ways that you see other people demonstrate leadership? What do you see that works as effective leadership? On the other hand, what are some ineffective leadership strategies that you see? Or what are some ways in which you use leadership in your work or life? What aspects of your leadership are you confident in? What aspects do you struggle with? Asking and answering questions like these can help you get clear on your definitions, your intentions, and your next steps. You can also review your recent successes and failures and evaluate each one. Remember, leadership is a skill that encompasses all your actions, including your reactions and even your inaction. What you have done or not done recently that you felt was particularly impactful in terms of your leadership is very important. And think about whether that is something that was really for good or for ill. It's important to look honestly at both sides of the equation. You can ask for feedback from trusted peers. Asking for feedback on your leadership or any other soft skill is challenging, especially if you are in a management position. Your direct reports have a vested interest in how your leadership impacts their roles. They may not feel comfortable sharing their thoughts or a critique of your skills. One effective tool that you can use is a retrospective meeting. You can have these at the end of projects or as a regular part of your work. During these meetings, have the group assess outcomes and consider all aspects of the work, including your leadership. Finally, translate your observations into a holistic understanding of your skill level. Leadership involves a lot of nuance when it comes to the different aspects. It's almost impossible to say whether someone is a good or bad leader without some qualification. Synthesize your observations in such a way that you can identify your existing strengths and weaknesses. Only then can you move on to developing those weaknesses into strengths. Do we have any questions about assessing your leadership skills?
Amy, we had one question about if you wouldn't mind going into further elaboration about coaching.
Absolutely. So we don't really get into coaching with this class in particular, but when we're talking about coaching, we're really talking about providing that one-on-one assistance and guidance specific to what the other person needs. So it's spending a little bit more time, say, talking through what would you do in this situation? How might you handle this? Let's talk about the pros and cons. Let me help you develop your skills. And maybe after we've solved the problem, coming back to it and saying, okay, this is what you did really well. And this is something that you could try in the future to do it even better, if that makes sense. Now, if that doesn't quite answer the question, feel free to go ahead and drop some more thoughts into the chat, and we can always circle back to that at the end of today's class.
Thank you, Jamie.
Absolutely. Now we are going to go ahead and move into developing our leadership skills. We've talked about defining and assessing our leadership skills, so now let's look at strategies to develop those skills. Once you have an understanding of what aspects of leadership you'd like to work on, you can begin to take steps to accomplish that growth. And let's start with some general suggestions to get you started. First, commit to self-improvement. A commitment is a promise to yourself regarding your future actions, whether it's taking time for reflection, asking for feedback, or taking courses to develop skills. Identify the specific steps that you will take, and the more specific you are in those steps, the easier it is for you to follow through on them. Next, break it down. As you set your goals, be as specific as possible. So don't say you want to improve your leadership skills. Instead, say that you want to improve your communication as a leader. And from there, you can get even more specific since there are many components to leadership that are soft skills in their own right. For instance, instead of just working on communication, you might say that you're going to work on your responsiveness to your employees. And you can list out specific actions that you will take to improve. So continuing with that example, for responsiveness, maybe I want to commit to sending a follow-up or confirmation email to every message that my direct reports send to me. I can go even further with that and say, I will respond to any request within 48 hours. And I can always share that with my team for greater accountability. You can also establish accountability from a peer or a friend. Is that person also working on their leadership skills? That's a great opportunity for you to be accountability partners. Another suggestion is to develop a mentoring relationship with a person whose leadership skills you admire. You also want to step outside your comfort zone. Trying out leadership strategies probably isn't going to feel good at first. It may even feel disconcerting or intrusive. So start by accepting that the practice will help you stretch your skills and that you'll gain more comfort and confidence over time. And finally, pursue learning opportunities. As we mentioned, there are some great options through LinkedIn Learning and other library resources. There may also be work-offered trainings and classes that you can attend to develop your skills. And if you'd like more library materials and suggestions, you can check out our course handout. We have some listed there for you. As you develop your leadership skills, it may be useful to focus on one particular skill at a time. Here are some examples that can get you started. You might consider communication. This is a skill that's foundational to all relationship building, and it includes many facets such as your tone, your presentation style, or your responsiveness to others. You could also focus on your resilience. In response to challenging situations, people will naturally observe others' reactions to those situations. So your own resilience becomes the group's resilience. Being a leader often involves putting yourself out there and potentially facing tough situations. And the way that you're responding helps other people determine how to respond. You could look at critical thinking. This is a skill that leads to deeper consideration of factors when making decisions, as well as your ability to identify and work through problems. Or you could take a look at conflict management. Conflict resolution and mediation can help you better assert your needs and develop a reputation as a trustworthy individual. Being able to respond appropriately to challenges and conflict improve your reputation. Again, these are just some ideas to get you started. There are many, many facets of leadership that you can explore. Do we have any questions about developing your leadership skills?
Hey, Jamie. So there's one question in regards to the breaking it down portion. And just was wondering if you mind going a little bit more into explanation about the term break it down and what that means.
Absolutely. So, when I'm talking about breaking it down, I'm really talking about making our goals as specific and measurable as possible. So, what you'll do is start with a very big picture idea. I want to work on my communication. And then you're going to think about what are all the pieces that might go into it. Okay, I need to work on how I email with people. I need to work on the conversations that I have face to face in my office. I need to work on my phone conversations. I need to work on my virtual meetings. And then from there, I'm going to pick one specific thing that I want to look at and say, okay, you know what? I really want to work on my emails. What parts of my emails do I want to work on? Maybe I want to work on the timing, how quickly I respond. Maybe I want to work on the specific language that I'm using. Maybe I've gotten a lot of feedback that my emails don't have enough details and I need to put in more. Or on the flip side, maybe people are telling me my emails are so long, they're getting lost in the details and I need to practice being a little bit more concise. I'm going to list out all of those different parts, and then I'm going to take them one at a time. So instead of saying, okay, I'm going to fix every single thing about every email I send, I'm going to focus on to start, I want to respond to every email within 24 hours. And that's what I'm going to focus on first. And when I feel really comfortable in that and I feel like I've got that down, then I can add on the next piece. Okay, I'm responding within 24 hours. And I want to make sure that I include 3 major points in each email. And I'm going to do that. And once I've got both of those pieces, I'm going to add another piece until eventually I've built it all the way back up to I've really improved this one skill that I've worked on and I can move on to the next thing. Does that help?
Thank you, Jamie.
Absolutely. All right. So we have talked about assessing and developing our leadership skills. The last thing I want to talk about today is actually demonstrating some of your leadership skills. So, as you develop your leadership skills, you're going to want to share them. During your job search, leadership is one of many soft skills that you'll want to demonstrate to potential employers. To do this, you're going to focus on team accomplishments resulting from your leadership. Teams can be successful either because of or in spite of their leaders. So, your goal is to talk about your specific contribution. How did your leadership benefit the final outcome of the project? Keep in mind, this can apply even if you weren't the leader of the project. It comes back to you can be a leader at any level, and you can demonstrate those skills just from the role that you had in the project. How did you lead from above, or how did you lead from below? You'll also want to showcase your composite skills. Think about the skills that we talked about on that last slide, the things that contribute to good leadership, your communication, your resilience, your time management. Show off your skills in those specific aspects. Remember, your specific examples will have the most impact in an interview, so collect stories about your particular wins or strong examples to share. As you answer your interview questions, utilize scenarios in your answers. You can demonstrate your leadership skills with examples of past successes. Equally important is talking about opportunities of learning and how you took steps to improve based on what you learned. Again, you'll want to be as specific and relevant as possible. Of course, you can also demonstrate your leadership skills every day on the job. I'd like to reiterate that being a leader is something that can happen within all job levels. And while it may look different on the outside, the same concepts are at the heart. So start out strong. First impressions don't stop after your interview, they're just getting started. So as you start a position or even a new role or a new project, make sure that you're putting your best foot forward from the beginning. You'll be setting the standard for what others can expect from you. You'll want to model professionalism and integrity. Good leaders contribute positively to the workplace culture. One of the ways they do that is by setting an example of behavior. Professionalism in this case refers to the demeanor with which you conduct yourself and is composed of a variety of soft skills in its own right. Integrity can mean both operating based on a code of ethics or morals and operating consistently. In either case, others will know what to expect from you if they have a question or concern. You'll also want to communicate effectively. Learn what communication is expected from you in your role, including the frequency, so how often you need to communicate, the method, is it email, is it in person, and the details, how much do you need to share. Good communication will simultaneously establish you as an engaged employee and demonstrate your organizational buy-in. It's also important when we talk about communication to spend some time figuring out what works best for your team. And that may be different depending on the individual. So you may have someone who prefers email and someone else who prefers a face-to-face conversation. And part of demonstrating leadership is being able to be flexible enough to respond to both types of needs. You'll also want to take initiative. Find ways to contribute to projects, tasks, and team endeavors in a productive and helpful way. And again, you can do this in any position. Keep in mind, you'll want to seek out whoever is in charge of the project and tasks in question and determine the best way to contribute. This is a balance between taking initiative and avoiding stepping on toes. So it's great to offer an idea that might help the project, but you want to make sure that it's actually something that the team is ready and willing to accept, not just jump in without permission. And finally, continually seek improvement. Self-assessment and feedback will reveal for you areas in which you'd benefit from additional development. And as you discover those areas, be sure to take advantage of that insight. And again, we're going to go back to the break it down. We're going to list out the things we want to work on. We're going to make it as small as possible. We're going to focus on one thing at a time, and we'll keep building on those skills. Do we have any questions about demonstrating your leadership skills?
Hi, Jamie. A question came in about how can I demonstrate my leadership skills for an executive assistant position? And it was said that sometimes it makes recruiters scared, and was wondering if you could go into detail about that.
Well, it's hard for me to give specific advice without knowing more about your work history and the specific requirements of the positions that you're interviewing for. But I think what you're wanting to focus on is the different things that you do well. Maybe you are really good at organizing projects. Maybe you are really good at communicating details of the events that are taking place. Maybe you are really good at bringing together different members of the team to get all the information that you need. Like I said, that's a very vague answer because the way that you answer your questions is really going to depend on those stories that you can tell that really highlight this is what I've done that I'm proud of, and that really match what that specific opportunity is asking for in the interview questions and in the job description.
Thank you, Jamie.
Absolutely. And we're going to let that percolate a little bit. And if you guys have more questions, feel free to keep dropping them into the Q&A or the chat. But while we do that, I'm going to go ahead and share a few additional resources. So in addition to today's class, we do have 2 more classes in this series. Please join us next week for Attention to Detail, and then the following week, October 26th, for Dependability. And the link that you used to register for today's program will work for those classes as well, so you don't need to register a second time. If you are actively seeking employment, please consider joining us for our Job Resource Connection. This program meets in person at Harrington Library twice per month on Monday evenings at 6:30 p.m. We have sessions coming up on October 23rd and November 6th. This program lets you build skills, network, and find support during your job search. And you can see more details and information in our program brochure. Our Navigate Job and Career Options and Job Seekers Toolkit programs were conducted virtually, and they can be streamed at any time on our YouTube channel. You can find these and other programs by reviewing our career playlists or simply searching the channel to find relevant content. And remember, you have access to resources like LinkedIn Learning and Udemy for no cost with your Plano Public Library card. If you need assistance in accessing these resources, please connect with a staff member at any library location. You will need to log in through the library's portal for both of those to access those materials for free. And if you'd like more one-on-one help to answer your specific questions about soft skills, job resources, library resources, or similar topics, we do offer Book a Librarian appointments. These appointments are made based on your schedule and offer you 30 minutes of dedicated one-on-one help from our staff. You can learn more and complete a request on our website. And at this time, I'll go ahead and take any additional questions that we have that may not have been covered up to this point. And you'll also see on your screen my contact information in case you'd like to reach out with additional questions in the future.
Hi, Jamie. We just have a question that came in. What resources can I look into from moving from a hands-on director position to a VP position? It was explained that I have a MA in communications and have identified conflict management, empathy, and delegation as areas to work on. So they're looking for some tools that they can, or resources that they can look into.
So if we're looking for resources to develop skills, conflict management, empathy, delegation are all great areas to look at. I would start from a library resources perspective, from looking at things like LinkedIn Learning or Udemy that offer some of those step-by-step tutorials. A lot of those classes will also have supplemental resources that you can work through as well. So there may be some exercise files that you can download, workbooks that go along with the class that you can kind of practice and wrestle with those skills hands-on. And then as you start looking for positions, you're also going to be looking at tailoring your resume and making sure that you are showing those transferable skills, because you're going to have things that you've done hands-on that are going to translate well to that next step. So you really want to focus on including specific examples, things that have numbers, things that have impact, and have those stories ready for when you interview to be able to say, I did this. I demonstrated leadership by bringing together a team of 50 people on this project with a tight deadline. These were our results. Here's our client reviews of the event that we put together. Things like that. Again, it's really hard to provide personalized answers during a class like this, but that's just kind of a big, broad starting point to get you started on that.
Oh, Jamie, we have another question. What resources can I use to improve my performance during interviews and have advices, any advice for the resume?
Okay, so we've got a couple of different options. I'm going to start with resumes first, because you're going to have your resume put in place before you actually start interviewing. And with resumes, you can look for like career coaches who are willing to look over your resumes, or a couple of resources available for free. If you have a LinkedIn account, you can use the resume builder on LinkedIn to do some keyword searching and to look at what may not be optimized in your resume. You can also use your library card to access tutor.com, which sounds like something for students, but tutor.com actually includes a resume review service as well. And what you do for that is you drop off a copy of your resume in the online portal, and you give them a copy of the job description for the position you're applying for, and someone will look over it within 24 hours and give you some specific feedback to say, either your resume looks great, you're good to go, or here are some different words, here are some different phrases, here are some things you might want to tweak on your resume. There are also other resources through programs like JobScan that can look at your resume specific to applicant tracking systems, or basically the fancy things that people run resumes through to see if you're a good fit or not, that you can scan your resume that you have written versus the keywords in that job description as well. Now, moving from that into interviews, you can look at tutorials on LinkedIn Learning or Udemy that'll practice that communication and interviewing skills. LinkedIn also has some options for recording live interview answers that you can record yourself answering a question, and their AI software will scan through that and tell you if you're using a lot of filler words, if you are speaking too fast or too slow. You can also share those videos with other people to say, hey, can you take a look at how I'm answering this and tell me what you think? Or you can watch yourself and see, oh, I fidget a lot, or I stare at the ceiling, or I stare at my feet, and kind of give yourself that own feedback as well. And like I mentioned earlier, my contact information is available here on the screen. So if you have questions about anything during today's class or any of the resources that I just mentioned, feel free to send me an email, and I'm happy to send you some more specific directions on how to access those resources or starting points. Or you can go ahead and do that, book a librarian appointment, and we can do some one-on-one time to answer specific questions as well. And that does bring us to the end of the content that we have for today. I will hang out for just a minute in case we have any additional comments, but I did want to thank you for attending today's program. As you exit Zoom, a survey is going to pop up automatically to collect feedback, and please consider taking a moment to fill that out. It does help us evaluate our classes and provide relevant and useful information for you in the future. You can, of course, find more information about the library and our programs and services through our website, planolibrary.org, through our blog, Plano Library Learns, or by contacting us directly. I hope that today's program has been useful for you and that you have an enjoyable rest of your day.